So in this segment, we're going to be discussing Gary Lineker kind of going, not attacking the BBC, but talking about the mistakes the BBC's making, amongst other things. And this is a guy who I've got a lot of respect for, to be honest with you.
Also, this is the mistake the BBC makes. The BBC tries to appease the people that hate the BBC. The people that always go on about the licence fee and attack the BBC. They worry way too much about that, rather than worrying about the people that love the BBC, which is the vast majority, because the BBC is a wonderful institution. It's got its problems, but that is a mistake that they made.
But the BBC needs to be trusted, and the BBC overall needs to be seen to be impartial, particularly in
We've got a limp-sticking issue.
news. And when you are so associated with the BBC, highly paid by the BBC, even though you are a freelancer, you've just accepted that what you did damaged the BBC. And some people would say, Gary, just while you're working for the Beeb, just don't bang on about what you don't like with government policy. Just put a sock in it.
And the people that say that obviously are the people that do try and champion freedom of speech. But freedom of speech when it suits them.
Do you see this as a freedom of speech issue?
Of course it is.
I guarantee if Gary Lineker's right wing, they'd back him to the hill. Honestly, there are other people who work in the BBC who are quite right wing who get away with this stuff, and the BBC does fear reformation more than anything, and budget cuts as well. If you look at what they've done to Newsnight, they've absolutely massacred that TV show. It's brutal. It's just a panel now. It's just a talk show. Nothing more. The only good things about that show are Nick Watt and Victoria Derbyshire. That's it. Get rid of those two and the show's nothing. So a lot of respect here to Gary Lineker going on the BBC's platform as well, because he's still going to do work for them during the World Cup and things. He's gone on their platform and he's gone after him.
Why shouldn't I have an opinion on things? I'm a bloody footballer who's turned into a sports presenter.
Because
Which is fair. Why shouldn't he? Even the politics side of it, I don't have an issue with them having opinions on things. Especially when it makes their biases more clear, so you can see that in interviews anyways. Like, it's very clear Laura Kuenssberg's got a conservative bias, let's be honest. Same with Fiona Bruce. It's not hard to see that. You can see that in their in the way they cover things.
Where I stand on this, I'm sorry, it's more important than what the BBC, what's going on there is, the mass murder of thousands of children is probably something that we should have a little opinion on.
But the BBC as a whole needs to be impartial about it.
Why? It needs to be factual.
It needs to be impartial about a conflict, doesn't it? And it's hard.
Does it have to be? It wasn't impartial about Ukraine and Russia.
And you might say that
Why does it have to be impartial about... I understand if it's partial about our government and things in this country and everything like that, but something that's going on that far away, why does it...
Because the Israeli position is that what is happening in Gaza, and by the way, I'm not here as an advocate of the Israeli government, but the Israeli position is that what is happening in Gaza is a response to the slaughter and capture of innocent Israelis on October.
All you're doing is, you're not being impartial. All you're doing is saying, oh, well, this person said this thing, this person said another thing. It's 50-50. It's not true. What you're doing is the neutrality bias.
The 7th. And
which was awful, which was truly awful.
And that full context needs to be there when discussing what's going on.
But that's not the full context, is it? Because the full context starts way before October the 7th.
Which is fact. And that's something the BBC refuse to do. They hide behind impartiality. They're not impartial at all. You had a situation where Mike Righteous did a Fire in the Booth. This was probably over a decade ago now, where he said, I can say free Palestine till I die. And what happens? They censored that out. What was the reason behind that? Apparently it was a higher up decision. Which higher ups listened to Fire in the Booth for a start, but also the fact that they are biased against Palestinians. Let's be honest now. So they're not impartial as they pretend to be. These are factual things. It did start before October the 7th. Gary Lineker's right. The fact that Gary Lineker is better on this subject in terms of covering it politically than actual journalists is just shocking. But it's not a surprise at all, to be fair, given the state the BBC's in. They've got a bunch of clowns running their media circuit. Let's be honest. I thought Andrew Marr was bad at times, but Laura Kuenssberg is somehow worse, and that's because of the guidance they are given and the stuff they can and can't say, but also the stuff they believe they can and can't say. But big credit to Gary Lineker here. The BBC did force him out in the end. The stuff they did to him was tantamount to, in my opinion, creative dismissal. And now they're worse off for it 'cause they've lost essentially their best sports presenter. He's one of the best presenters in the country when it comes to covering football. He's very good at it. He's a very good host in general. So that's their loss, really. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.